Very excited about this podcast. Got notes and everything with highlighted information. I Am Rapaport Stereo Podcast with a man that needs no introduction, who I've been a fan of, New Yorker from Long Island. Been in everything. I was going through all the films, and it's been decades. Glengarry, Glen Ross, Working Girl, Miami Blues with the great Jennifer Jason Leigh.
Right.
Love that film. Beetlejuice, The Hunt for Red Octobers, The Royal Tenenbaums, Departed, Blue Jasmine, which is one of my favorites, 30 Rock, philanthropist, classical music lover, father of 17 or 18 children, the excellent, the curious Alec Baldwin is with me on the I Am Rapaport Stereo Podcast.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Did you see?
No, I haven't been doing these things, you know what I mean? But I see you online. I see your Instagram. And I'm always like, you can hear me laughing in the other room. Because there's very few people who tell it as straight as you do.
Online. You know, online is a crazy... Why are you online? I know why I'm online, and some people say to me, why am I online? But when I see you online, sometimes I'm like, through the good, the bad, the Trump, the pandemic, even this week, and every time you get online, it's like, controversy, questioning. Why are you even on social media?
Well, I think that number one, we found, and maybe we found it, maybe my wife figured this out probably, or we found it on accident, is that you wind up thwarting paparazzi press when you're putting out a whole bin of your own images of your kids and yourself. The more you post online certain stuff, the less the value there is to their pictures of you.
Right.
So they don't, unless they got my wife pregnant walking down the street, which is often. But and for me, I find Instagram can be fun in terms of, and I don't mean to do these rambles where I would talk about a topic, which I like doing that because it's you unedited.
Yes.
Like I've done pieces where the most cogent things I said, as you well know, get cut out.
Yes.
And I get frustrated with that. So I kind of stopped doing that for now. But I would do these rambles, we called them, and I would speak to people in the audience about a topic. But most of it's like, I think it's funny with my kids and so forth. And it's like a PR thing that you control.
I agree.
That you control.
Because like during elections, pandemics, you would get on there and like you get into stuff and like you're a great speaker. You have a lot to say. You're obviously you're an iconic actor. So I would be fascinated watching you do your stuff because it's like even someone that like I've come across you personally, but like watching you get on there, I'm like. And you're, I don't know, it's just like you have such a, and also you're comedic, but you're also dramatic as a performer.
Right.
So sometimes when you're doing them, they're like, I look at it as performance art. I
think if you could make it funny, there's people obviously who are the biggest stars in the world who, think of some movie stars who have nothing to do with social media.
Very few left.
Yeah, like Leo and people like, they don't bother. He'll post something to promote some environmental thing.
The penguins. He only posts about penguins and grizzly bears. That's it.
That's fine.
But we know you're Leonardo. We know you're on there.
Yeah, well, we love Leo, but
of course.
But the thing is that once you say you don't want to do, Hanks will do little things every now and then, and who's more of a movie star than Hanks? But it depends on what you do. I used to want to pontificate.
Yes.
And now I don't, and I didn't think it was pontificating, but other people would.
Oh, it's pontificating. It's great pontificating.
I would pontificate, yeah, okay. And, but I don't, I kind of slow down on all that now. I really could. But the problem is what forum do you communicate with an audience through? You do TV interviews and they cut them.
Mm-hmm.
You do an interview with someone and they shape it and talk about you a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
I've had people, I think I've always said this in the past. I had one guy when I was making a movie in New Orleans. I had one guy from the Times-Picayune down there who actually was my favorite interview because he wrote exactly what I said in the paper. And he really had the spirit of what I was trying to say. And everybody else, it's the new journalism where they're going, well, what he really meant was,
right.
what he seemed like was, and there's, pardon me, there's a element of psychoanalyzing that they're not qualified to do.
I agree. And I also think that, like you said, I mean, your history with the paparazzi and being followed and the marriages and the divorces and your stuff with the paparazzi is, unique. And it's been for decades.
Right.
I mean, this is since the 90s.
Yeah, I met my ex-wife in 1990. Yeah.
So you've been dealing with it on a different level. Like,
but
it's
I
not
will
just...
say that what I think is important is that, and again, this doesn't excuse anything. I'm not saying this as an excuse. I think there's a profound difference between an excuse and an explanation. And the explanation is that nothing was ever unprovoked. If a guy was 75 feet away from me with a long lens and he wanted to take my picture, I didn't care. But if he walked up and he almost chipped my wife's teeth with the lens of the camera, my favorite one, and I don't mean favorite in terms of I enjoyed this, but the most absurd one was this huge guy. He had to be like 6'4", probably weighed about 250. He's backing up from me with the camera and he's taking my picture as I'm walking in the direction and he's walking backwards and he slips and falls and sits on a baby in a stroller and lands on the baby. He trips and lands on my neighbor's child and sits on the baby. And I thought to myself, this is like, this is really not right. And all of the altercations I've had with people like that, it's always been provoked where some guy walks up and goes, what are you doing with this woman, my wife?
Right.
I mean, she's a whore. They'll say horrible things to bait you.
Right.
Because that guy doesn't want the confrontation. What he wants is for the third guy across the street to film the confrontation.
Right. It's like 3-card Monte guys.
It's 3-card Monte. The journalistic equivalent of 3-card Monte.
Do you find that now? I think this is good. I mean, you've went through the fire. You've dealt with the loss. I don't even know what this stuff. And do you find now that? And I think it's good that the paparazzi, they're a little bit leery of you, which I think is good. They should be.
I don't think they care because I'm so old now. They don't. I just don't think that they care. I really do think that, like I don't know how you feel, and I don't say this with any. I'm not celebrating this at all, but it's like you'll see people now. I mean, I'm old enough now, and they'll say, "Oh, I went and saw this movie with so and so," and I'm thinking, I have no idea who that is. I don't know who anybody is anymore. I mean, I'm going to be 65 in April. And I don't know who anybody is.
The younger actors.
Oh, all the Saturday Night Live. The host is Smokey. And
right.
I go, I know no Smokey.
Right.
I never heard of, whoever the it is. I don't know.
It's changed.
Well, we get older.
Yeah.
And we have a different
is
perspective.
different.
It's like Long Island. I have this house on Long Island. And we've been out there forever. And when I first went out there, people would say, the old timers that I met would say, oh, it's changed. And I'd go home and think, I think it's pretty great. I had just gotten out there. Now I've been out there for 40 years and it's changed.
Right.
Your perspective changes when you get older.
Now you have on 2 watches. Is this I got to add, what is this, a child's watch?
This is a cardiac. This is my EKG cardiac thing from my doctor. Yeah.
So is it a Rolex?
No, this is a Breitling that my wife got me that I love. It's my favorite. The Super Ocean, which a lot of Breitling fans. I have a lot of watches, as I'm sure you do.
I don't. This is the only. I'm not a watch. You know when I stopped wearing watches? When I had my first kid, because when I was holding him, it always get stuck on him, and then I stopped.
Yeah, I have a lot of watches, and I have some just stunning watches, and but this I wear because it's an EKG program, and you do that. It Bluetooths to your phone, and you send it to your doctor because I've been doing a lot of cardiac testing now that I'm going to be 65.
Got to do it.
Got to do it.
Now, also, one of the things, now, let me just say this. There's a couple of things, aside just your acting, and I said this to you the one time I spoke to you on the phone, I've always loved that you're such a fan, and you're a fan of actors, you're a fan of classical music,
right.
You're and you're not a shy fan. You like to fan out on other actors. You like to talk about your experience with other actors that you love, that you admire, and you've done it openly, which is something that I think it's definitely something that I really appreciate, respond to.
But the I find, I don't know what you're like, but I find that with my podcast, I do it because of my curiosity. And, we try to have famous people, musicians, actors, what have you, people in the arts, writers, but we also try to have people where there's some issue. Like where I'm going to interview a guy tomorrow who just has a book out, and he was the principal obituary writer for the Wall Street Journal.
Interesting.
And we want to talk to him. We always have an array of people where the topic is what's interesting to me. And but I don't know what you're like, but I never want to talk about, like if I go to a film festival, this is the best example, and they say, we want you to come and be an honoree at a film festival. What film of yours do you want us to show? And I'll go, and I'll say, oh God, I don't want you to show any of my movies. I want you to show Red River with John Wayne. Let's show a great film and we'll talk about it. But I don't really like to draw attention to myself in terms of acting and my work, because I really believe that I've never once had a satisfying experience making a movie my whole life. Never.
Really?
Never. In terms of the work, meaning it's like when you're honored to, Scorsese says, come and do The Departed, come and do The Aviator. Those are small roles, and you're honored to be there. You're so appreciative of all the people you're working with. When I did Glengarry and things like that. But in terms of my own satisfaction, only sometimes in the theater did I feel, because you could have more time, you rehearse obviously and make, but in films, I can't name one film I've ever done that I was fond of.
During or the results?
Either. No, during was the memories are of the people.
The memories of the time.
I never sit there and say, oh, we shot that scene and watch how I say this line. I just don't even bother with that. But I'll sit there and go, I'll never forget, talking to Jack Lemmon or talking to George C. Scott or someone I really deeply admired.
Driving in the van and hearing those things.
Think that when a movie will come on and I'll see a scene and I'll go, I remember that day. That's when I had a flat tire on the Ventura Freeway and I was late to work and out, whatever it was. But I never look at films of mine and go, watch this. You know what I mean? Like I'm digging it.
Are you, when you're working, I mean, it's probably changed throughout the years, but when you're working on a set and you're doing a scene and you're, in a good movie or a good show, are you struggling to satisfy yourself? Like, are you able to sort of self-direct and self-monitor? Like, I've gotten to the point where, and I think some of it is because when I've done television, directors come in and out where you go, that was good, to myself. Like, because I can't defer to a stranger. I can't defer to somebody. Say, like when you're as a young actor, you're like, was that good? Was that good? But do you struggle in between takes? Do you like when you say nothing's ever been satisfying, you don't go home and go, I did what I attempted, my goals.
All I think about is what I should have done.
Really?
I go home and I go, I do what I call rear view mirror acting. I look at myself in the rear view mirror and I'll go, listen to me, Bob. I'll say the line.
Right.
And I go, oh, that's how I should have said the line. But like you were saying, we all have had to become self-directing. There's more jobs out there. There's more square mileage now in the business than there are good directors.
Yes.
And so when you go in, we've all had to develop that self-directing muscle. When you go on the set and you're with a great director like Marty or somebody like that, you just stand there and he's got it worked out. He's got it worked out. He knows what he wants to say. He knows the rhythm of it. Say that line faster, come in quicker, do this, do that. You welcome that. But with a lot of other people now, you go in and, at my age, you're there saying, I've made more movies than everybody on this set. I know more about acting than everybody on this set, unless I'm with somebody who's one of the greats. And I just, you have to become self-directing. It's tough. And I'd rather be directed.
And what to you makes a great director? You've worked with Woody Allen, who I worked with, who is directorless almost, and it's almost actor proof. I've never worked with Scorsese.
Who's a director you loved?
Woody.
Right.
Spike Lee, Tony Scott for different reasons, Nora Ephron for different reasons. But I've never all those directors that I worked with, it wasn't the direction. It was the confidence they gave you or the belief they gave you. Even with Woody Allen, where you do 1 or 2 takes and you go, well, at first it was like, what the fuck? I've been practicing this for 6 months. But then well, he knows he's got it. Even though you want to keep going because you're having such a good time.
Yeah.
But I've found I've never gotten it's like Nora Ephron. I would ask her questions. She'd go, I don't know, but let's figure it out later. Tony Scott, similar thing. Spike Lee and
What did you shoot with Tony?
Tony Scott, True Romance. And I was really young. I mean, I was 24 and impressed. I was like, and on the sets, Christopher Walken and Val Kilmer and Christian Slater. And I'm like, what the
big people.
But he made me feel like, and I'd ask, I'm trying to actor shit like this. He'd go, that's good. That's not good. But keep asking me questions. And that made me feel like, all right. But I when people ask me, non-actors, like, what is a director? I've never had like a magic sauce or somebody sort of wave a magic wand and you're like, oh, that's it. Like, so for you, what is a good director?
Well, I mean, one thing that comes to mind in reference to what you said that I thought was interesting was I had a director once say to me, and I'll never forget this, and it was not in the beginning of my career, it was later in my career, and he said to me, we were going to do a couple more takes. And I said, maybe we're like at 4 or 5 takes. And he goes, I think we got it. And I know that everybody's in a hurry time-wise. They want to move on, and if they got it. And I go, can we do 1 or 2 more takes? He goes, yeah. He goes, but I just want you to keep in mind. He goes, sometimes you knock the guy out in the first round. Sometimes you knock him out in the 10th round. He goes, what does it matter? You knocked him out. That's all that matters. You probably would rather knock him out in the first or the second round and get it. You know what I mean? He said, sometimes we get it early.
Right.
And sometimes we don't. And I'll tell you. And I trusted him once he said that. I trusted that he was observing things in a way that I could appreciate. And for me, a good director is somebody who they make you see the movie like a symphony. A symphony has its highs and lows, its adagios and its pizzicatos and what have you, and I want someone who they're going to tell me, what am I in their movie? Like an ingredient in a salad. I don't need to come in here and jerk off and make myself look powerful and clever and all these other things. What am I in your movie? And tell me and one of the things I do now and have for the last several years, I'll say, tell me the story of the movie. Tell me about your movie like it's a story. And you'd be surprised how many directors can't do that.
It's a good question.
But then there's ones who will tell it to me. Well, this is a story about a guy or a woman or whatever. And I only want to come in and give you what you need in the movie and resist that temptation to want to pull focus and do too much,
Did you enjoy, I liked it, and it's changed the way I read scripts. You've worked with Woody Allen a couple of times throughout the years, smaller parts. Do you enjoy when he would give you only your scenes in the script?
Well, I didn't, listen, when you work with Woody, you're working with somebody who, we were in Italy for the opening of To Rome with Love with Jesse Eisenberg and Greta Gerwig and what was Ellen Page,
right?
And now
Elliot Page.
Elliot Page, and we were there, and the press, the Italian press, really only wanted to talk to Woody. So all of us were on a dais, and they'd say, "Okay, you," and the reporter would go, "Woody, I have a question for Woody," and they'd ask Woody. So finally, they asked us a question: "What does this mean to you? To work with Woody?" And I had worked with him in this movie Alice with Mia years ago. And I said, the thing about Woody is that as a star, as a comedic performer, as a movie star, as a writer, producer, what have you, I said, the thing that you got to remember is that first and foremost, Woody is a writer. And at the corner of my eye, at the end of the table, you saw Woody nod. Like, that's the thing I think he takes the greatest pride in, is that he writes these movies which are like, I'm not joking when I say if I'm really depressed, like if I can't get out of bed, and which those days are not often with 7 children, But if I'm really down, then I really don't feel like the world is what I'd like it to be. I watch Broadway Danny Rose and I feel great. I'm on my feet. You know what I mean? I mean, like the brilliance of that writing and the way he timed that movie. And with him,
It's ridiculous.
yeah, I mean, it's like with him,
That film
Just say
particularly is ridiculous.
it's really great. I love that.
It's so goddamn good cinematically, the writing, the blocking, the cinematography, the editing, the way he sets up the shots. I was just talking about it. I watched it maybe 6 months ago.
I watch that movie all the time.
Fawning over it.
I watch that movie all the time. Who's the cheese eater? May God forgive me, Barney Dunn. Then they cut back to the guys at the cafe. Barney Dunn. You remember, he was the stuttering ventriloquist. So Danny. I mean, that whole sequence, I'm just crying laughing.
And the mobsters' faces, and like, making, it's one of the first films where they made mobsters funny.
Yeah.
It came with a time where like he's like sort of comedic mobster.
Are you an Aries, Johnny? Are you an Aries? He says to him up on the balcony.
Yeah.
I mean, but the thing is that it's like, what's something that can or movies that you can go back to that really just resonate for you? I mean, I love old movies. When Bob Osborne was alive, he had me come down and do a lot of this guest programming with him on Turner Classic Movies.
Oh, right.
I tell you, it was one of the greatest times of my life. I love Bob. He was the loveliest guy in this business. He invited me to come down there and do 3 rounds of that. Eventually, the producers were like, get him out of here. We know enough of him. But I came down and did it with Bob 3 times. And we did the wraparounds for the essentials. And, they'd send me the discs and they'd say, watch these movies. And some of them I didn't have to, like half of them or more I didn't have to because I'd seen them already. And then I watched some that I'd never seen before. And I think people have forgotten movies that can actually reach inside of you, and really affect you.
I agree.
I think that more and more movies now are as just escape,
And I think movies in general are, it's a really sad, I was watching Tootsie this weekend.
That's fun.
And I'm like, this is not even close to being ever made ever again.
No.
Why would this ever be, it's never going to be made again.
Right.
It'd be some weird, obscure, tiny movie that maybe would make it to Sundance and do well at Sundance.
Right.
And this was a big...
It probably wouldn't get made.
It wouldn't get made.
It'd be appropriation.
All of it.
Yeah.
The whole thing. But just the kind of movie and the way it was shot. What, is his levels good, Dave, with the mic and everything?
Am I good? Yeah.
What was I know you're a fan of Scorsese, and it's funny because you mentioned the TNT classic movies. That was almost like a podcast before podcast. And that's one of the things where I was like, and this is, in the 90s when you're a star, but you're talking about films, which I really love that and I respect that. I know you're a Scorsese fan.
Oh, yeah.
I know you were a fan before you started working as an actor.
Yes.
What was your Departed experience, your Aviator experience? What is it like being on set with Martin Scorsese as a director? And how do you separate fan and now we're working together?
Well, I did a lot of, even though it wasn't necessarily applicable to the shooting, I did a lot of research for The Aviator because Juan Tripp, the president and the founder of Pan Am, his family lived in East Hampton. His daughter, Betsy, who was married to this guy, her name was Betsy DeVecchi. Friends of mine knew her. She was older. And I got connected with her, and I went and I sat and had lunch with her and talked to her for a very long time about her dad. And she described what he was like. And she said to me at one point, very, very elegant woman, and she goes, well, I see where my dad is going to say that horrible word, because I say fuck at one point. And she goes, I see he's going to say that horrible word. She goes, Dad would never say that word. He would never say that word. So I called up Marty and I go, I don't know what to say, but she said that he probably wouldn't say that word. And there's a long pause and Marty goes, I need you to say fuck. It's like, but you, and I love that. Like, here's the clarity. Here's what I want you to do. This is my movie. And then when we did an Aviator.
That's cool.
We shot the scenes we did the one scene in the restaurant, but the stuff where I'm out the door and I'm kind of taunting Leo we shot those very quickly because it was a whole day of Leo. Remember the milk. Remember the milk. Remember the milk. Leo naked.
Yeah.
In the other room with the bottles of piss everywhere.
Yeah.
And they wanted to get this as efficiently as possible, and I understood that, to move on to number 1 on the call sheet and get Leo cracking up inside that room. So we did that. And then on The Departed, I just remember it was like a lot of testosterone, you know what I mean? Wahlberg and Matt and Leo and all these guys there. And I didn't have any scenes with Jack, but I remember Marty was in really good spirits. I think he was excited to make that movie. Very excited.
Is he in complete control of the set? Like is he very clear on what he's doing, or is he finding it as he's going, shot to shot?
Well, I would imagine other people who have a more profound history with him, it's different.
Right.
I'm sure that he and Bob have a different, thing, and Pesci and so forth. I'm sure, and when Leo now, because Leo's his, muse now. But I think that when you're working with him, and the guys that know what they want, Mike Nichols, I had that small part in Working Girl, you just stand there and just, say, sir, yes, sir, because they know.
Right.
But when you're with other guys who sit there and go, what do you think of how the scene should go?
That's when you're in trouble.
Well, you have to develop that muscle to think about that and to have some answer to that eventually. But
what do you say to that? Because that makes me nervous. What do you think how the scene should go?
Well, the problem is that when you're in a scene with other people, you're being asked to give an opinion, and then if the director isn't going to take control, they're trying to get you to appeal to the other actor and sell them on your idea. If you're working with another actor who doesn't want that responsibility to say, and you're sitting there going, well, I thought I'd walk in, but I wouldn't sit down because I want to feel there's a certain tension, then that tension gets relieved when you say blah, blah, blah. Then I say, whatever your thing is, and you're talking about the scene, you got to sell the director and the other. I like when the director walks in and goes, Rob Reiner, come in, sit down, turn, sit, get the bottle of water, say, Charlie, he's got it all worked out. And he just says to you, and you say, great, tell me what movie you want me to make.
Right.
Because I'm not going to cut the movie. I'm not making the movie.
Right.
In the theater, you can rehearse, and you're working with, if it's a revival, you're working with material that works well. And in the theater, you can have more, once you open especially, and the director is gone, you can have a little bit more nuance of whatever. But in movies, the rule to remember is you're not making the movie. He's or she, they're making the movie,
right.
The director. And you need to just say, what can I give you?
Right.
Because if I don't give you what you need and you go into the cutting room, then everybody's miserable.
I agree. You worked with so many people. I want to play a game of what makes them great.
Okay.
I'm going to name different actors, and I want you to say, because one thing that I feel like's missing in podcasting, there's so many sports podcasts, and athletes will...
What'd you think about the weekend, the football season? Oh, my God.
Crazy. I mean,
that guy with the Lions, he cost him the season.
Crazy.
The guy with the Packers.
Yeah.
He cost him the season.
Yeah. Well, good fucking Aaron Rodgers. I love Aaron, and I like to see him suffer. I have a love, I'm a fan of his, but I like also...
And he's talented, yeah.
He's great.
Yeah, he's great.
And he's been very prolific for my fantasy football teams. Are you involved with fantasy football?
No.
Oh, you'd be a great fantasy football person.
Okay.
Number one, because I know you'd want to win. You'd want to because the shit talk, it's all about shit talking, but it's also like numbers and struggling and frustration. And the thing that it's done for me is made me a bigger fan of the scope of the league. It's taken me out of just my Giants and just my hate for the Patriots. When they were prolific, they're miserable now, as they should be. But you'd be a great fantasy football person, because I could see the whole, now you have 17 kids, so you can't do it now.
Yeah.
Now's not the time to jump into it, but you would.
Because you want it to be fantasy football, with all my kids. There's little room for fantasy in my life right now.
No.
It's a lot of reality.
Not much
fantasy.
Yeah, and you catch a quarter of a game when you can.
Well, I go into on Sunday, we have a routine. The kids go to their gymnastics and their basketball, and I take them. We go to a facility, and they all do their thing on Saturday and Sunday, because in the wintertime, when we're indoors, and or we don't go out of town and go to where we have a house. And we do that. And that usually wraps up and they come home and have lunch, or I take them to lunch. And then when we come home, I get home at 3 o'clock, I'm like, I'm in the bubble. I'm in the bubble.
And they're not like
I don't want anybody
pulling,
to talk to
scratching.
me.
You could watch the games.
They get booted to another, or I go to a room.
You go to
we
a
only have
safe
2
room.
TVs in our house.
Got you.
One in a playroom for the kids and one in a sitting room near my bedroom. We don't have a TV in our bedroom.
And the kids don't know where that is yet.
No, they know where it is. They know everything. So, but I'll go there and I'll say to my wife, please just let me. Because when the NFL I don't know how you feel, but when the NFL season is over, I get really depressed.
Yes.
There's nothing else for me to watch. I like basketball.
I love my basketball too.
I like baseball. I love going to baseball games a lot, but I'm saying when the NFL season is over, I'm like, shit.
Are you a Jets person?
No, I'm only somebody who wants to see somebody get a ring. Like I like the Giants. I like the Bills. There's teams I like, but the Lions, I was excited. I hope they were going to have a shot, but Seattle killed that. But I always think of a guy, and you know what got me on that was Marino. When Marino didn't get a ring, I thought that's really shitty because he was one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time.
Yes.
And then I wound up doing this dopey Amazon Alexa commercials with him, and lovely guy. And I thought, so when I look at guys now, and I think I want that guy to get a ring.
Okay, so you like the scope of it.
I root for individuals, not so necessarily teams.
Okay. Well, the thing I was saying about the athletes, there's a lot of particularly basketball podcasts, and they'll say, what was it like guarding Iverson? What was it like guarding Kobe? And for me, it's different because when you're going against Kobe, you're just trying to stop them. Acting, we're with them. But I just want to throw names at you about, and I want to say what makes them great. Blue Jasmine is really one of my favorite films, and a ridiculous performance, ridiculous character. The writing and the performance from Blue Jasmine, Cate Blanchett. What makes Cate Blanchett great?
She's indefatigable. She just has energy to spare. She's got no self-pity. She's not, there are men and women I work with who, not many, I don't want to say not many, who are very indulgent, and it's all like my hair, and they're in the makeup trailer for a long time, and they get on the set and they touch them up again, and everything is like we're posing for a still camera, like for photography. And Kate is somebody who was like, fuck that. She went out in the hallway and drank like 2 espressos, and she'd come back in the room where we had to do this fight scene. And she's just really, really tough, and she's really, really blazingly talented, but she really, really just had bottomless energy.
I love
she
that.
could do take after take after take, and I thought she was going to clock me right in the face one scene, and I was like, go right ahead. I don't give a shit. This is amazing watching you do this. So
I love that.
Yeah.
Damn, that I love that so much.
She's powerful.
Oh man, you made my heart. Ed Harris, what makes him great?
Well, I think Ed is someone who has the great blessing of the great movie stars, where he has the facial symmetry. Ed's face, the mask of his face, pulls you in. He's so compelling looking. Those big watery blue eyes of his, and that real cowboy, tough, square-jawed thing, and he can and he can dial up a kind of I don't want to say menace, but an aggression, and he can dial it down and be very sweet as well. So he can do, I always call this, my phrase is the sweet and sour. He can do the sweet and sour, and a lot of it has to do, for most movie stars that I can recall, the ones that are the most memorable are the people who you can see into their eyes. They used to say that if you were working with an actor who you couldn't see into their eyes, they'd play a villain. That the hero always had to be somebody you could read them and look into their soul. And Ed just has that amazing face of his, you know what I mean? And always has. And I've always been jealous of him because he's just got this enigmatic face all the time.
I love that. Meryl Streep, who I'm sure you were a fan of before you started working as a film actor. You got to work with her, play with her. If you could even get into what makes...
That's tough because there's so many things to say. But from my experience, I would say that with her, it was, she doesn't let anything throw her. She doesn't get upset about anything. She doesn't allow any thing, this is just my opinion, to blow her sails off the course that she's on. If the scene isn't going the way the director wants, or whatever's happening in the scene or off the set or what have you, she comes on the set and she is gracious and she is wise and she's generous. I mean, she's all the things you'd want a legendary actor or actress to be toward you if you weren't really at their level and you were intimidated. Because when I did the movie with her, the director, Nancy Meyers, said to me, she's 9 years older than you. And the men in the movie business have no problem dating and dialing down the ages of their leading ladies, some 20, 25 years. It's ridiculous. She said, the men do that. Why doesn't, it's complicated as the movie. And she said, how do you feel about that? I said, listen, my character doesn't want to have sex with his wife, his ex-wife. He's still in love with his ex-wife. There's a big difference. And I said, and Meryl is a very easy person to fall in love with. So when we did the movie, it didn't make any difference to me about age and whatever. And Meryl is a very easy person to fall in love with. Yeah, she's amazing. Great person.
What I love this film, smaller film, Miami Blues.
Yeah.
Great Jennifer Jason Leigh.
Yeah.
What makes her great?
Fearless and no self-consciousness. And, she was, there were many things that I liked about her. And and subtlety. I mean, she is a master of subtlety and did all these little small things and with facially and what have you. But she was fearless. Like one time we're doing a scene and I have to have sex with her, or you see the early blushes of that. And I'll never forget, she turned to me, I didn't know her. And she goes, now you can do anything you want to me in the scene. And when they say cut, you have to stop. But like whatever impulse you have to do, as long as you don't hurt me, she goes, whatever impulse you have to do something, she goes, you can do it in the scene. But when they say cut, you stop. She's like, you understand? And I'm like, yeah. Oh yeah, I understand. And
that's an interesting.
She was very, very. I don't want to just say professional. She's very wise.
I agree.
She's a woman that showed up on the set of a film. She was very young, and it's like what made Brando Brando. Brando figured it out while he still had the sheen of his youth and his beauty. They handed him a Rubik's Cube that meant the highest level of virtuosic film acting. And he went, zit, 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 zit. And he went, you mean like this? And everybody was like, oh my God. And he figured it out so young that where were the challenges for him later on, which is why he became so petulant.
Yeah.
And Jennifer was kind of the same way. Kirsten
Dunst?
No. Kristen Stewart. I mean, I turned to her when we did Still Alice, and I made a fool of myself. And I said to her, we're doing a scene, and I go, you remind me of Marlon Brando. She looked at me like, what? And I said, I have no idea what you're going to do, take the take. And the variety wasn't that wide-ranging. But she would do little things. And I think that Kristen Stewart is a great actress as well.
I do too.
Yeah.
Are you a take person in terms of try this, try that, try this, try that? Or are you like, this is the sort of parameter? I mean, there's little tries, but like, are you like, I want to do one loud, I want to do one not loud, I want to do one soft, I want to do one angry, not, how do you approach things?
I think what it comes down to for me is that when I see the movie, and if the director agrees with me, there's a music to it, there's a rhythm. If the scene says, Jack drives up in a car, gets out of the car, goes into the bank, let's just shoot the fucking shot twice, get out of the car, go into the bank, and let's move on, because we can't love every scene. And then when you're in the scenes with people that you are more they're a little bit more intense and more layered, I have a silly rule, especially if I work with younger actors, where I say, let's do it slow, medium, and fast in terms of the pace. Because there are scenes I've seen, I can't quantify how many, but there are scenes I've seen in films that I've done where they cut the scene because you can't speed up the energy of the scene in editing.
Interesting.
If people are doing the scene and they're kind of like, a lot of young actors do this. Ready? So you and I do a scene and they go, what time is it?
What time is it? Did you ask me what time it is?
Yeah.
It's 5 to 11.
Did you say 5 to 11?
No, now it's 4 to 11. I know what you mean.
And you want to go, you got to energize the scene.
Right.
Because you know what's going to happen? They're going to cut the scene.
Right.
If it sits there. So I always say to people, let's pace it up.
That's smart.
Pace it up, pace it up, pace it up.
That's
way
smart.
We'll have a better chance of being in the movie.
I got you.
That's my opinion.
That's smart. That's smart. You didn't get to work with him in Glengarry. What makes Al Pacino great? You've spoken about him. You've done impressions of him.
Passion.
You're a fan of his.
Passion. He's just, even to this day. We did a thing for the studio. The Actors Studio, it's their 75th year, their anniversary last year. And now the celebration and the programming to celebrate the studio's 75th anniversary overlaps this year, this past fall into this spring. And they showed Dog Day Afternoon at some famous movie theater that I forgot. It's up in Harlem or way uptown. It's like up on 135th Street. And this theater is gigantic. It like seats like, I don't know what it was, like 2,000 people.
Wow.
2,200 people. It's like a big music hall or whatever. I don't know the name of it, but I think it's a movie theater because they're screening the film. They showed Dog Day. The place is packed. Now, many people bought VIP tickets to benefit the studio to go to a little party afterward, backstage. And but the bulk of the people there, or the overwhelming majority of people there, are there to watch the movie. I mean, they fill a theater way uptown in New York in the dead of winter, where it was pretty cold, and show Dog Day Afternoon. And then I interview Al afterward on stage. We come out, we do a little Q&A. And people are like pissing their pants. They just love him. Al is somebody who, I've said this before, and I feel bad to repeat this, but it's the only thing I can think of. And that is, I said, other actors, I said this at the Lincoln Center tribute to Al. I said, other actors, when the movie's over, you're done. They've made you laugh. They've scared you. They've thrilled you. They've terrified you. They've made you fall in love. They've done all these things. And they're very funny, or they're very charming, or they're very sexy, what have you. But when the movie's over, you're done with them. You're ready to get out of the theater. I said, with Al, you're never done. When the movie ends, you want to go, no. You want more. There's a humanity to Al. There's a sensuality to Al. Al has everything. And he still loves, he got up there and he was talking to the audience, and he would make these comments, and you could just tell he still loves acting.
Loves it.
Loves it.
What did you think rewatching Dog Day?
How sad it was that Cazal died. Cazal was great. Cazal was so great. He was so great. Deer Hunter, Deer Hunter's a movie that's really tough to watch.
It ain't an easy movie.
It's a tough to watch. But the people who, like Bob,
This is this.
You look at Bob and you're like,
I was going to pivot to Bob.
Right.
You got to interview Bob on your NBC show.
I did that ABC show.
ABC show.
Right.
You love Bob like I love Bob. You got to work with Bob as a director. I interrupted you, like Bob. Talk to me about Bob. Break down Bob DeNiro as an actor. It's impossible. And when you interviewed him, were you able to get? Because I got to be honest, Alec, when you got to interview him, I was jealous because I was like, I want to interview him, but I've yet to see someone get. And you were trying. I've yet to see him.
He doesn't like to talk about. I get him on the phone, then I go. He goes, you want me to do this show of yours? Okay. And he said, the people told me it's an hour. It's an hour. And I'm like, what are we going to talk about for an hour? And I kind of froze, and I said, well, I thought we would start with your movie career. Maybe that would take us through an hour. He was like, You're very funny, Alec. You're very funny. And he comes, and what I think I said to him that I really meant, and he was very kind about this and accepted this, was I said, do you realize how much you mean to other people? I said, people come to acting as a fan of other people's acting. When you love acting, I don't know one person who came into this business in film and TV. And of course, the array can be anything. It could be the Dick Van Dyke Show. It could be Raging Bull. You don't give a shit. It can be Friends. It can be, Superman. People come into the business and they spent significant parts of their life appreciating other people and watching other people and having borderline obsessions with other people. How many times have I watched Raging Bull? How many times have I watched The Godfather? How many times have I watched Psycho, whatever? And you just can't get over. You watch the acting at the highest level and you're sitting there going, oh, I hope one day I have even an opportunity. Not that I'm going to do it, but I even have a chance to do something even close to that. And I said to Bob in the talk show, I said, do you realize what you mean to other people, they've seen you and watched you in all these films do the greatest acting, among the top 25, 30, 50 men or whatever. And then women are in a different category as well. And he was like, oh, thank you. But I really meant it, It's like Al, Nicholson, Dustin, I could go on and on. Keitel, Newman, Beatty, Redford of that generation. I know I'm leaving out some
Robert
people.
Duvall just turned 92.
Duvall.
Gene Hackman's alive.
Gene Hackman. Duvall, we always say the greatest performance in a movie is when he played Boo Radley because he breaks your heart. He doesn't have one line. He doesn't say one line, not one. And there's the same guy who pulses. Duvall's kind of amazing, who pulses this sensitivity and this suffering and plays that character so beautifully. One of his first film roles. And that's the guy on the beach going, playing Kilgore in Apocalypse. That range of what I call disposition. Is the character powerful in the world? Is the character strong in the world? Look at Orson Welles and Citizen Kane, how commanding and how facile he is, and how amazingly sharp he is and seamless. And then you see someone play a part like Duvall. I'm always looking for people who they play characters where that character is strong and confident and fearless, and then someone who's struggling and in a lot of pain. And can you do both those things?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he seemed, because I was really thinking about his performances the other day when I saw he turned 92. He seemed that character in Apocalypse Now, it could have been a joke. His character in The Great Santini, the apostle, which he acted and directed in, which is insane.
Yeah.
You never saw him acting. And these are characters. It's like he's an actor you just didn't see acting. It's almost one of those people who I imagine like people go, oh, you're not acting when you're acting, which is a compliment also in a disrespect because you don't understand the craftsmanship because it's seamless with Robert Duvall. I just love him so much and such a appreciative that he's alive. You know what I mean? Even I don't know if he's making films anymore.
Daniel Day-Lewis. He to me is somebody who it's like, I'm joking when I say this, but I always felt like Spielberg and Tony Kushner and Daniel Day-Lewis get together to do Lincoln. And whatever source material there was, still photographs, written accounts of how Lincoln behaved, audio recordings. I think there were some. I don't think there was any film footage of him. And I see Daniel Day-Lewis as somebody who says, okay, I'm going to survey all of this material. But in the end, I'm going to come up with a character, and that's Lincoln.
Right.
And for all eternity in people's minds, that will be Lincoln.
Right.
I'm going to create the Lincoln that's going to be the Lincoln
right.
from now on, as opposed to Raymond Massey, who did it early on
Yes.
years ago. And nothing wrong with his performance, but I think that you see guys who, just by the sheer force of their talent,
What actors do you remember throughout the year? And I mean, I just named a few. I mean, you've worked with, there should be, they do 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but you're at a point where it could be 6 degrees of Alec Baldwin, of people that you've worked with. What actors do you remember throughout the years? It could be recent, it could be when you were younger, where you're in a scene and you're like, they're so good, where just for a moment during a take or a rehearsal or a close-up where you go, they kind of take you out of it and you're watching
Well, I was
them.
going to do a movie, and we went and did a reading of the script at a hotel in L.A., and DeNiro was going to do the movie, and he dropped out because he thought he wasn't right for the part, because the guy was kind of very waspy. I did this movie, The Edge, with Tony Hopkins, which was originally called Bookworm, and it was much more Baroque and much more psychological. They turned it into like an action film, an adventure film with the bear and everything. But when they called me, I was on vacation with my ex-wife, and they called me and they said, Tony Hopkins is going to do the movie. I started to cry. And I thought, oh my God. And I showed up there to go to work. And the movie, had a lot of things wrong with it. And I was not wild about how it turned out. But I got to do this movie with Tony Hopkins. And that was the greatest experience I've ever had shooting a movie, because it was a lead role. If I do Bob's, if I do
The Good Shepherd.
If I do Good Shepherd with Bob, that was just in and out in a couple of weeks, and Marty and people like that, Nichols, smaller roles. But when you play a lead role with somebody who you really like, Harold Becker, who did Sea of Love, and he did other great films, Taps. We did this movie Malice, which was this very tepid kind of thriller with me, Bill Pullman, and Nicole Kidman. But I learned a lot from Harold. He was great. He was really very actor-friendly. So, but I must say that the time we spent up in Canada shooting The Edge with Tony, that was probably the greatest experience I've ever had.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
When you did Glengarry Glen Ross, when you showed up one day?
2 days we shot, yeah. We rehearsed, and then we came back and I shot it over the course of 2 days. It might have been 2.5, I don't remember, but I know it was 2 days to cover everybody.
The film's been quoted. It's an iconic film, iconic scene, the lines, the actors. When you look back at that time, what do you remember? What do you take away from that experience? And the way you approached that scene, would you approach it differently now? Not
Probably.
in terms of why.
Probably. Maybe you tone it down, and maybe you just a click, meaning he said to me, Foley, he said, this is like the scene because I was very uncomfortable doing this scene with these guys.
Why?
I admired all of them, and I had to be so abusive to them. And I called up Mamet on the phone, and I said, you won the Pulitzer Prize for the play. Why do you feel the need to amend the play? I said, you won, it's the big prize. He said, none of these men have a criminal nature, and they're about to commit a crime. And I need someone to come in there and ratchet everything a little tighter for them, make everything more taut and difficult for them, so that they will commit. So you come in, and your scene is going to be to incite them to commit a crime. And then I said, oh, God, when it came time to shoot the scene, Foley said, it's like that scene in Patton when he slaps the guy in the tent who got shell shock. And he says, you call yourself a soldier. And Foley said to me, we're going to call this the you call yourself a salesman scene. He's like, you're coming down here. It's for their own good. You're not doing this to be mean. This is for their own good. They need this, or they're going to be dead. We're in battle here. It's a war. You go out that door, you got to sell. And he goes, and I need you to crack all of them right across the face as hard as you can and get them to snap the fuck out of it. And I literally remember like electricity going through my body because I needed someone to explain to me. I call it authorization. What authorizes me to do the scene that way? And when he told me that, I was like, okay, I'm ready. And I got up and we go. And it was not easy because, you have to say all these horrible things to them. But the thing I remember most has nothing to do with that. The thing I remember most was that was one of the earlier, I'd done a few, but not many, of the great monastic cinematographers in the business. One of the greatest joys of making films is to work with great cinematographers. I work with Ballhaus, with Nichols. I work with Bob Richardson. I worked with Don McAlpine on The Edge. And I worked with Juan Ruiz Anchia, who photographed Glengarry. And he's just unbelievable.
Explain to non-actors why it's great to work with a great cinematographer as an actor.
Well, you watch Glengarry, and it's like a painting, with all the black and white kind of. It's a film that's in color, and sometimes you feel like you're being seduced into it being black and white. John Toll, one of the I think there's only two men. Toll is one. I think there's one more I can't remember, who won the Oscar for cinematography in back-to-back years. I think he won it for Braveheart, and then he ran it for Legends of the Fall, I believe. He won it for one of those movies. I know he won for Braveheart.
I believe it was Braveheart.
No, Braveheart he did, and then the year before that he did Legends of the Fall. I think,
right.
Not River Runs Through It. It's either River Runs Through It or Legends of the Fall. So he won the Oscar 2 years in a row. And you're with this guy, and you're like, and when you shoot, because this is a movie.
Yeah.
We're making a movie.
Yeah.
Someone's going to put the camera on you and do it. And this guy who shot Glengarry, he just was like, all the great DPs, they never transmit any tension. They like walk up to you and they go, could I ask you a question? Could you please just lean? And when he talk, you lean this way, just a little bit. And I go there and we line up and I go, you mean like this? He's like, it's perfecto. It's so good. And you're like, I'm here to put this on film.
Right.
So when you have guys that are really, and women who are really, really strong cinematographers, God, you feel so confident.
I agree.
It's going to look good,
And so being on the set, cursing at Jack Lemmon, who must have been a fucking a sweet guy.
Yeah.
You're cursing at Ed Harris. You're cursing at Alan Arkin.
Oh, horrible.
Are you having fun? Are they having fun?
No. You play these characters that are these tough characters. I said when I did Streetcar on Broadway, I get into like the 6th week of it. I want to say to Blanche, why don't we sit down, have a drink, Blanche, and work everything out? I mean, you get tired of being, at that level. And when I do movies where you have to kind of lose it, or you're cruel in some way, it's never fun.
Right.
Never fun. What's fun is when you do, like when we did 30 Rock, that was fun. Because those people were so creative, and Tina's so unique, her talent as a writer, and Robert Carlock and their whole stable of writers, that I'd come to work and they were like, they'd hand us the script in the morning, and we'd be in makeup, and we were going to do the read-through for the network that afternoon. They would pipe us to Burbank from a room. We go into a conference room. And so we'd take lunch on a Wednesday and do the read-through. And they'd hand me the script in the morning, and I'd walk up to Robert Carlock, and I'd say, you want me to play this Patty Duke thing with myself, and the other side of it is I'm a gay Mexican soap opera star? And Robert Carlock would always say, it's a big swing. I know it's a big swing, but we have faith in you. We believe in you. He was always giving me the business. So, but that was fun because they were so fucking funny.
Did the speed of it throw you off at first? The speed of television?
No, they knew, the speed of shooting?
Yes.
It was a lot of work. I mean, I'm not complaining, and we were compensated, but it was like we knew, we had a line, or I had a line with them, which was, you give the scene the stick to the finish line, like in horse racing. You don't pause. You gotta just go. Let the audience, our audience will keep up with us. And I thought it was genuinely funny, as opposed to so many films and TV shows I see now that are more cute than funny.
I agree.
Yeah.
When I was talking to you on the phone, you gave me a very, very big compliment. I don't even know if you remember it, but it stuck with me. You said you called me the Laurence Olivier of fuck. And I consider you one of the great cursors in cinematic history, along with the great Dennis Farina, the late great Dennis Farina. Of course, Bob De Niro, Frank Vincent, Joe Pesci, Alec Baldwin, the great Al Pacino. So I wanted to have a fuck off with you.
Okay.
And I wrote some lines down, and I'll say them, and then I wanted you to say them as well. We could go back and forth a little, almost like an actor, warm up routine here. And so
Some Meisner.
yeah, some Meisner stuff.
Here we go.
Fuck you, Michael Rapaport.
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 You motherfucker, you.
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 You are a cock sucker.
You are a cocksucker.
You're a cocksucker.
You're a cocksucker.
You're a cocksucker.
You're a cocksucker? Did we get it?
I'm in heaven. I'm almost done.
Now, I want to ask you a question. I want to interview you for a second, which is my nature. So, when you, in your career now, do you find that there's types of work you don't want to do? Like, I would imagine a TV series could be in your hand tomorrow. You don't want to commit to a series and be grinding that out for 5 or 6 years?
No, I would love to find a good one. It's crazy now because a television series that is good and that lasts, and there's such incredible, ridiculous, great stuff on TV. You kind of want to be a part of the great ones.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much good stuff on television. What are you watching on television? What do you get to watch besides football? Probably a lot of SpongeBob, Teletubbies, and all this.
Yeah, Sunny Bunnies, Moana, Frozen. We watch Frozen
Over and over.
Oh, my kids,
Finding Nemo.
Well, they all go down. You know what I mean? So now there's 2, the toddlers. They were in that phase, and my daughter, Luthea, she can't say Olaf. She says Owaf, and when she sees me, she's the most wonderful. She kisses me. She hugs me. Then she goes, Owaf, 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 Owaf. Like she wants to go watch Frozen. So I would say what I've watched, I watched the one with Cannavale and Naomi Watts.
Yes.
Something.
Yes.
The Watcher.
Yes. That was good.
I watched that. I devoured The Crown.
I love it
Because
too.
I'm obsessed with production value.
Yes.
Like there's things you're going to see. There's sets and photography and design, and there's a reality there and going into the world of those people that you're just never going to see anywhere else.
I agree.
And then I'm trying to think of what else.
Did you watch White Lotus season 2?
No.
You got to watch it.
Why?
It's fucking ridiculously good. The writing's ridiculously good.
Is it really?
You're gonna be like, oh shit.
I always say to myself, I'm not quite sure how interested I am in shows about like romantic and sexual intrigue. It's not that.
It's
not
ridiculous.
Dynasty.
No.
Okay.
You're gonna be like, oh shit. And it's this second
That's
season.
good.
Excellent.
That's amazing to hear you say that.
Excellent. And it's so good. You're like, this is fucking.
I watched all of Ozark.
Great.
I watched all of Ozark, and I just got a little freaked out because whenever they wrote themselves into a corner, they started shooting people. So that was like Westworld. I went all the way with Westworld, even though I was a little bit disappointed in how that. I wanted something more relatable to happen, and then. But I will tell you, and maybe I have a feeling maybe you feel the same way. One of my favorite shows, I always say this to people all the time, and I'm amazed that people didn't catch this, was The Night Of. The Tarantino, Turturro.
John Turturro.
That Turturro did
Played
with
the
Riz
lawyer.
Ahmed.
Yeah.
And the kid gets busted, and they only did the 1 season. And Richard Price and Zalian did the writing.
Excellent.
And that I think Zalian did the directing. That show was so good. That was the one that Gandolfini shot the pilot, then he died.
Right.
So they had to go back and recast and reshoot it. But oh my God, I love that. I love that show.
Really good.
Michael K. Williams.
Yes.
Who I worked with in this movie, The Public, with Emilio. Now that's a director I love. Was Emilio? I worship
Emilio
Estevez.
He's a good director, right?
He's a great director, and he's the loveliest guy on the face of the earth. And we did this movie, The Public, and Michael K. Williams was in it. And when I saw him and his energy, I completely blanked. And then I walked up to him like day 4, and I go, "You're the guy from The Night Of." And he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, I love that show. The Night Of. People should watch that
really
show
good.
on HBO.
You know what else is excellent? And even though you're happily married, I'm happily married too. Fleischman's in Trouble on FX with Jesse Eisenberg and Claire Danes. It's based on a book, and it's really about these two people going through their divorce, and a great portrayal also, like Blue Jasmine, of a woman going through a mental breakdown. Fucking excellent.
Now, why would my marriage be soiled if I watched
your marriage wouldn't be soiled.
Oh.
But for me, I had went through a divorce with my kids, and that show really it captures it in a real way.
The movie with Adam Driver and Scarlett,
Marriage Story.
That I went from the screening was at the Hamptons Film Festival, and I was out there, and I walked out into the hallway, and Noah was there, and I had tears in my eyes, and I said, "This is like you had a camera hidden on me, during my divorce. You know, you're remarried now."
Yes.
So you were married once.
Yeah, twice.
Twice before.
No, once before.
Once before. So
One
me too.
for two.
Once before, and now I'm married the second time. And I said to Noah Baumbach, I said, "I can't believe this is so close to the bone to me. It was painful."
Yeah, I agree.
Great movie.
I agree.
Yeah.
Excellent movie.
Yeah.
Excellent, ridiculous movie. Fleischman's in Trouble, it's all New York.
All right, I'll check it out.
It's fucking...
I'll check that out in White Lotus.
You're
Only
gonna-
because you said so. Everybody else tells me White Lotus. I'm like, yeah. I don't want to see a bunch of people banging each other at some resort or whatever.
You will love...
It's not that.
You're going to go, I want to be on White Lotus season 3. I guarantee you. The writers are fucking...
I don't need that.
It's 7 episodes, and each one, you're just like... I mean, there's times where me and my wife are like, God damn, this is ridiculous. See, it's just that good. And the undertones...
Everybody says that.
It's great. It's not Dynasty. It's not Knots Landing. It's not... It's that, like, relationships and dysfunction and what's being said and what's really not being said.
Imperioli's on the show now.
F. Murray Abraham, Aubrey Plaza, some people I've never seen, but excellent. It's really good.
I love Michael.
He's great.
Yeah, he's it.
Alec Baldwin. I could go on and on and on and on and ask question. My final question. What is your Trump predictions 23? It's 2023.
Well, what
do you think's going to happen?
Well, I don't think that. I do believe that there's a chance. I don't feel strongly about this. That this conservative cabal that withheld the vote for McCarthy to be the speaker, they're going to continue to try to tip over the canoe for that group. The Republicans are in the majority, and I'm not quite sure they're going to hold on to the majority. I think that there is going to be more and more the press is willing to call it. Like, for example, every time there was a moment when things changed, and you would hear on the media, the press would say, Trump that said the election was stolen, which has been disproven. They would label it a lie. The news media would come right out and say that's a lie. And I wonder if they've become more aggressive in terms of citing that with everybody. So I think that the Republicans are very fractured, and that may hurt them in 2024 for holding on to the House. And number two, I can't imagine that anybody's going to be the nominee other than DeSantis. He seems to be positioned himself very adroitly for that.
I agree, but I go back and forth. I go back and forth on Trump.
I think Trump is cooked. He's cooked. I mean, all the stuff that's come out now. When you tell Americans that, like I, for example, believe you should have a base of what income taxes are, a minimum tax. So let's say Michael Rapaport makes $10 million.
Oh, that would be great.
Well, let's say you're in a 40% bracket, so you owe $4 million to the IRS. And what we say is we don't want to disincentivize philanthropy. So we say you can deduct $2 million, but you must pay no less than 20% of your income. No amount of write-offs, nothing. Your baseline, like alternative minimum tax, similar, is you must pay 20%. Everybody in a certain category, then we knock those numbers down for people who make less money. But it's like this idea that Trump paid no taxes. You want to go, you got to pay 20% of your income minimum to do that. And I think that when people realize that Trump said his taxes were withheld, and you see that he paid no taxes at all, I think some of his base is going to be, they're going to find that offensive.
I hope they do, because
Trump is cooked. He's finished. Yeah, I mean, people want to win the White House, and they know they're never going to win with Trump, and they know that DeSantis, they've got a good shot.
Right. All right. Alec Baldwin, I Am Rapaport Stereo Podcast.
Thank you.
I appreciate it so much. This was awesome.
Good to see you.
All right. Brand new banging I Am Rapaport Stereo Podcast is here. Have no fear. I am so ridiculously excited to have Alec Baldwin, the Alec Baldwin, with me on today's I Am Rapaport Stereo Podcast. We talk about everything and anything. Miles Jordan, a.k.a. the Bleach Brothers, a.k.a. the Dust Brothers. Start this puppy off with something real nice. Yes, start this museum quality I Am Rapaport Stereo Podcast off with something real loud. But most importantly, start this Alec Baldwin I Am Rapaport Stereo Podcast off with something real funky. I Am Rapaport Stereo Podcast is here. Higgity, have no fear. Boom. All right. Came, saw, we did it. I'm so proud, so proud, and so happy with this episode of the I Am Rapaport Stereo Podcast. Thank you so much, Alec Baldwin. Miles Jordan, a.k.a. the Bleach Brothers, a.k.a. the Dust Brothers. Take me out of here with something real loud. Take me out of here with something real proper. And most importantly, take me out of here with something real funky. I Am Rapaport Stereo Podcast. I'm out. Let me do a YouTube intro. Yo. I am so excited to have Alec Baldwin on today's I Am Rapaport Stereo Podcast. Leave a comment. Tell a friend. Leave a request. You got more people you want me to have on? Let me know. Yo, thank you so much for watching. Leave a comment. Let me know what you thought of this interview. Let me know what you thought of Alec Baldwin. Let me know what your favorite Alec Baldwin performance was. I appreciate you guys watching. Let me do a thing for these shows. Yo, what's up? What is up? Yo, I'm performing live this week. This week, I am performing live in San Antonio, LOL San Antonio, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Come see me live in San Antonio. Tickets are available at michaelrapaportcomedy.com. Let me do one more. Yo, what's up? This week, I am performing live in Orlando at the Improv in Orlando. Come see me January 20th and 21st. 2 days, 4 shows at the Improv in Orlando. Tickets are available. The link is below.